the executive director and founder of Rise Above, Neil Fernandez. Hi, Neil.
How you doing, Bart? Good to be back.
Good to have you. Welcome back. Neil was here a few weeks ago looking at the great success Rise Above has had. And we asked Neil back today because Neil's been going through some issues with an immigration that is threatening his family, and you wanted to talk about it.
Yeah, it's not a little thing. I wish I could say it was just a simple little hiccup in the journey and something that was going to be easily resolved, but unfortunately it's quite exceptional and has tremendous impact, not only on our family, but I honestly think on our community as a whole. So.
Yeah, it does, and it's very unfortunate. It is a tragic story, and Neil came to Jackson. You actually you went to Spring Arbor.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, we've been here about 12 years now.
So,
yeah.
And you're originally from?
Just Windsor.
Windsor, just across the river.
Yeah, an hour and a half away.
Just down the road,
yeah.
Just down 94. And
Absolutely.
Neil and his lovely family have made their home here for 12 years.
Yep.
But because you're from Windsor, you have to go through immigration, naturalization, some hoops.
A few hoops, yeah.
Yeah. So tell us what's happening, where things are.
Well, I'll give you the kind of the background a little bit. So we did. You're right, but we came here about 12 years ago. Originally from Canada, I was a professional, as we all live in the Canadian dream, as it were. And we kind of sold everything. Wanted to go into a new profession, and decided to come here to go to university. So I got a student visa, just like everybody else does that wants to come to school in America that is not from the USA already. I got a regular F1 student visa and came here. During my time at SAU, we quickly found out that we had a passion for working with youth in our school districts particularly. And that's where the idea in my senior year really came from, was through we're sitting in church and just had this vision of what we could do. Very quickly in my senior year it came to fruition, put together a business plan, and away we went. So at the end of my school time, my visa, my F1 visa, turned into what's called a work-study visa. So immigration-wise, it just carried on from school to a work-study.
Very common.
Very common. A lot of international students do that. Well, they'll stay an extra year and do what's called a work-study, where they continue to work in the profession that they just studied. And that's exactly what we do with Rise Above. And during that time, I then transitioned again into what was called an R1 visa, which is a religious worker visa, because I am an ordained minister. And it was at that point when we felt pretty good. The R1s are long-lasting, they're renewable, and something that you can do for 3 iterations, as it were. So I could renew that 3 times. But at the end of that process, we then had to get a green card or leave, or go through some other process. And so we decided to, hey, we are having some success with this Rise Above thing. Let's carry on the process and become permanent residents of the U.S. We own a home here outright. We pay our taxes like everybody else does. Our kids are all gone to school here. My daughter is married now. She's not in our family picture that I believe is on our GoFundMe page, but she's married and has a husband and a home of her own. My son is now engaged and has a family that he's about to start. I have a young son who's in a senior in high school, and so we thought, hey, let's get this green card thing. And just as COVID happened, we applied for our green card, and then because of COVID and the delays, it just, instead of it taking 6 months to a year, it ended up taking almost 2 years, the process. So, and what happened in that time, my first lawyer that did all of the visas for me, because we used lawyers for this whole process. I don't know if any of your viewers have ever been through the immigration process, but it is not like checking something off of your grocery list. It is not a simple process by any means. To put it into perspective, when we applied for our green card for the family, I have a dinner table that seats 12 people in my kitchen. That dinner table was full of papers for us to sign. Not just individually, like stacks of papers for all the different forms and stuff. And the process is very expensive as well. Tens of thousands of dollars have been spent on legal fees and processing. And then the wait time that goes with it. Not only the visas, but also the green card process. So it's an intense process, and it's very intentional, and it requires expertise that I don't have. So we hire lawyers in the same way that I hire an accountant to do my taxes, because I'm not an expert on my taxes either. But we rely on them for their expertise. And in my particular case, that is what got me in trouble. When I went from my visa to my green card, we had to switch lawyers because my first lawyer went into corporate law. And so we found a new lawyer. That lawyer took over, and some assumptions were made in that transaction. And so some things weren't shared with us that ordinarily would have been shared with a client, and that resulted in us breaking some immigration laws, which ultimately led to our green card being denied. It was something there's a legal term for it that we believe is called no fault of his own. It's a no fault of his own clause where, hey, through no fault of my own, unintentionally, I did something that I shouldn't have done. And that ultimately led to the full denial of our green card and us having to leave the country. And that decision, so when we got it's called an intent to deny letter from the USCIS, the Immigration Service, we filed a court filing saying, hey, no, mistake. My lawyer owned the mistake, said completely my fault, signed letters and affidavits to that effect saying, hey, not my client's fault, there was a miscommunication here, They still agreed that, no, they were right, we were wrong. I broke the immigration laws. We then filed, I secured some additional lawyers, 3 additional lawyers to support my case. We filed a motion with the Michigan Federal Court, District Court, in the Detroit area. That motion was basically us asking for nothing more than just to be put back in line. Just let us go back in the green card process. We weren't asking for preferential treatment or even to give us the green card outright. Just put us back in the line where you took us out. And what I did in that, not only did we create a legal argument, but we also created a social argument in that I got, I believe, 23 letters of support from our community, from superintendents of schools, police chiefs, heads of DHS, you name it, everywhere in our county, from every facet of life, people who value the work that Rise Above does and our family, not just anecdotally, but by having journeyed with us for these 10, 12 years. And they were compelling arguments, I believe, moving arguments in many cases. And the judge ultimately, as of this past Tuesday at 5 p.m., decided to completely dismiss our case, saying that we didn't have jurisdiction and that he was asking us to leave the country. So we have essentially lost our case and are having to go home in the next 48 hours.
So is there an appeal process? Nothing?
No. So the challenge in what this judge is ruling on, or what this judge has ruled on, was a Supreme Court decision from this past summer.
U.S. Supreme Court?
The U.S. Supreme Court, yes. It dealt with a gentleman out of Georgia, his name was Patel, who, believe it or not, filed for something as simple as a driver's license, and he checked the wrong box. Mm-hmm. Immigration, he was in the green card process as well. Immigration found out that he checked this box where he shouldn't have, and they denied his case. That went all the way to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court heard that this summer, and ultimately what they ruled was that should have never been heard in court at all. That the Supreme Court ultimately said no federal judge should be hearing immigration cases. In that this judge that we went to agreed with that ruling, choosing not to set precedent and make a ruling on our behalf. So essentially what it does, the travesty in that Supreme Court ruling, and this is widely agreed upon, is that that Supreme Court ruling essentially makes it impossible for any future immigrant that is wronged in either the way we were, or even more egregiously, where somebody intentionally makes an error. Mm-hmm. There is now no recourse for an immigrant to take their case to federal court for adjudication, to ask for a grievance to be heard and for a reversal to be made. the judges now, as Mr. Goldsmith, the judge who heard our case, ruled, he does not have jurisdiction and just threw our case out. I can't hear your case. You're an immigrant. It's an immigrant matter. I can't hear your case. Sorry. So even if it's done intentionally, there's no more recourse based on this ruling from the federal courts.
Now, I would imagine you've already been in touch with Congressman Tim Walberg or our senators or some other.
I have. I spoke to Walberg's office, as a matter of fact, yesterday. We're looking at some options, and again, I would encourage anybody that is that is inclined to do so to reach out in support of not only Neil and Veronica, but of Rise Above. Honestly, for me, that's what this is about. I'm a grown man. I will find a job. You know, I will make it. I'm worried about these kids. I'm worried about my staff,
Yeah, so Rise Above, you've created an opportunity for kids who have been kicked out of school to get their degree and make a life, make something out of their life. And that has been dozens and dozens and dozens of kids in Jackson over these 10 years. So appealing to who? So who should people reach out and write to? And mention also, Neil, I know we have many other Canadian natives living in Jackson. Maybe there's someone that has been through a process or has some inside information that can help you out. But other than that, writing to congressmen?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Congress people, there is a way, there is a path. And this is partly why I'm speaking to Congressman Walberg's office, is there is a way that Congress can write a bill specifically for the Fernandez family and have it passed in Congress to basically give us our green cards. They can do that. It's been done and has been done many times. I don't know how easy it is. Honestly, I don't know the ins and outs of the process or how long it takes or whether it's still possible, but I know that it has been done. But the simplest thing is just to call and say, I support this family, this cause, what we're doing. And honestly, anything that folks can do to even support Rise Above and to ensure that in our stead, that Rise Above persists and my staff continues to do the work that our community has become so dependent on, and our students.
Yeah, and not only are you the founder and chief executive, but you're also the head fundraiser and head cheerleader and everything else.
Yeah.
Plus, you personally are involved in these kids' lives.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, a student of mine that doesn't even know that I'm in this conundrum texted me last night to tell me about his new wife and to ask if we can go out for dinner this weekend. So we're going to Culver's with a former student on Saturday for lunch to meet his new wife and to praise him for the joy that he has in his life. So.
Probably never would have got married or graduated high school.
God knows, you know.
Yeah.
God knows where these kids would land without the support that we can offer.
Well, I've heard from some of the students. I've been at a couple of events at Spring Arbor University, for example, where your graduates, former students have spoken, and it's very emotional. The whole room is just overcome with tears hearing these incredible stories. Changing lives, and it's amazing that just a clerical mistake or a miscommunication
literally
between
just a clerical mistake,
is dooming you. So, and you mentioned your younger son; he's senior in high school.
Senior, yeah, it puts his graduation at risk, and I mean, like I said, my oldest son is getting married this year, and we may not be able to even be present for his wedding as he gets married to an American citizen this year. So,
yeah, well, that was the experience of a lot of people during the pandemic because of the travel ban. Yeah. But so unfortunately, it's happened a lot. But
it really is beyond anything we could have imagined with regards to an outcome. So
So as people I know, I've talked to some people that have been advocating on your behalf. It's like, there's nothing more anyone can do at this point. So a member of Congress about Senator Peters or Stabenow.
Yeah, so I reached out to their office before we started the litigation with the federal district court here in Michigan, and they basically said nothing right now until you're done with the court hearing. And so that is done. So, I mean, time's very tight right now, obviously with us having to leave this coming Sunday, but I will likely try reaching back out to their office again. And again, anybody that is so inclined that has the number, I would love for them to do the same and say, hey, we need to pick this case up. I know that I've been contacted by other media sources that want to run this story as well. So our plan is to, if we can, to go as national as possible with this story. You know, the tragedy, Bart, for me is, yes, for my family, but is also to think that somebody else could go through this. Someone that has every intention to do the right thing, every intention to contribute to their community, that has adopted them, to do everything in their power to be productive and to check the boxes that are meant to be checked as a legal immigrant to the United States of America. And I would hate to think that if I leave this country without opening my mouth and sharing my experience, and that somebody else goes through this because I didn't, that in itself would be another tragedy that I just would be heartbroken to hear about. So.
Well, one would like to think that any judge that they ever have to face in any kind of matter would be intelligent, reasonable, compassionate. That's what we expect of the judicial, but that
Yes.
is not the case, and you haven't even been able to face
No.
in person
No.
a judge, even Zoom or nothing.
Nothing. No, we were not given a chance to speak to the judge in the case. Not allowed to plead our case outside of in writing through email. But I was never given an opportunity to tell my story. No. No. Yeah. Outside of you, Bart, you're the first person that I've been able to publicly tell my story to. So, thank you for that opportunity.
Well, I'm just very sad to hear that full story. I've heard about it, not in complete detail as we've all just heard today. So perhaps someone that has some ability to make a difference is going to see your story and will do something.
Yeah, I pray that is the case. You know, whether it's for us personally, i.e. the Fernandez family, the clan, as it were, or for our organization, Rise Above. You know, it is not just the four of us that's being affected, and I pray that anything that can be done will be done, whether for us specifically or for Rise Above. But you know, if you have the ability, please call, email, whatever the case is. I'd love to talk to you.
Yes, there's also a GoFundMe set up for Neil's family because, as Neil said, he hasn't been able to work.
Correct.
In order to follow the rules of immigration.
Exactly. Yep.
So their help would be greatly appreciated. And we'll put a link to the GoFundMe on our website with this interview later today.
Oh, thank you, Bart.
So keep us in the loop. Let us know how things go.
Definitely.
And stay in touch.
I absolutely will. Thank you, Bart. Appreciate your time.
Hopefully we'll see a lot more of you.
Me too.
The founder of Rise Above, Neil Fernandez. Up next on JTV,